Joining us today, Trevor Noah, host, writer, and executive producer of The Daily Show, or more recently known as The Daily Social Distancing Show. Hi, Trevor. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Have you got used to doing the show from home yet?
No, not yet, because I mean, it feels like I launched a new show with no pre-production, no planning, no scheduling, no anything. So, if anything, it feels like I'm piloting a new show while I'm live on the air, which is not an ideal way to make a new show. So, no, I'm not used to it, but I'm enjoying the thrill of something new again. I'm enjoying being in a world where there's new avenues that you can explore, new things that you can learn about creating a show, and so I'm taking it for what it is. I'm lucky enough to be working, so I don't take any of that for granted, and I try and enjoy it every day.
What are some of the challenges? I imagine it's a lot different from being in the studio, whether that's shooting earlier or having to communicate on Zoom and everything else.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge has been figuring out how to balance the workflow between different people. When you're in one building, you make decisions like that, and you work between people like that. And now with this new process, we're in a world where, I mean, I record a clip at my apartment, and then I have to send that over to the editor, and then the editor's working on that, and the editor has to send it to the graphics department, and they have to work on it. And so everything becomes a really labored step, as opposed to what it normally is, which is just record immediately and work through that at the same time. I mean, we can put graphics on the fly. So it is interesting working together and yet working apart, but at the same time, there's moments where we have fun together. We also go like, man, this is ridiculous. We've turned into like elevated YouTubers, which is fun and different. And so we're not taking ourselves too seriously, even though we're living in a very serious world. And so I'm enjoying myself with my staff. I hope they're enjoying themselves too. It seems like everybody is. And then the last piece of that puzzle is just trying to, I think, convey that enjoyment to the audience, whilst also like really giving gravity to the parts of coronavirus and the news that we definitely need to.
Is it tough to tell a joke to an empty room? I imagine the pacing is slightly different.
Oh yeah, slightly different is an understatement. It's I finally understand why my grandmother didn't like cooking as much when none of her grandkids were around. Because if you don't have somebody to appreciate the product of what you're making, it's just not the same anymore. More than ever, I appreciate the fans who come in and be a part of the live taping of The Daily Show here in New York. It's also fun though to play with different rhythms of jokes to try and break out of the box, because now we don't have a live audience. So I've tried to tell jokes that I wouldn't tell in a style that I wouldn't normally use, and even create the show in a format that we wouldn't normally create, just to try and embrace the fact that we're in this completely uncomfortable space that we never intended to be in.
Yeah. You say it's like trying to pilot a new show while you're doing a show, but at the start of this, you decided to extend the show to 45 minutes. That seems quite sadistic.
I can understand why it seems that way, but there are a few things I realized when we were doing the show. One, my dream was always to extend The Daily Show just a little bit, because there's so much more news, and this, like, once I took over at the helm of The Daily Show, my dream was always to incorporate more international news. Not to like inundate the audience, but just give them perspective, from Brexit to what's happening in the Philippines, to the journey of Angela Merkel in Germany, to, stories from South Korea and North Korea and beyond. And I think it's important to process information through the lens of the world. And it's funny that in many ways, this virus amplified that, I remember when we were covering the story on the show, a lot of my writers would be like, oh, why are we covering this random thing in China? And I was like, yeah, because I mean, isn't it a bit crazy that there's this thing in China that's happening, and they're building a hospital for 10,000 people, and how are they doing this, and what's going on? And I think maybe because I've come from a small country relative to other nations in the world, I've always appreciated how important it is to keep tabs with what's happening in other places, because that thing can come and affect you. And so you need more time to do that, because I understand that The Daily Show is an institution. And so I never wanted to have more international news at the expense of the American news that is, watched all over the world. And so I think just a little bit of more breathing room has enabled us to create more show, more content, more information. And and hopefully give people like a solid 45-minute show where people can go, okay, I watched this. I pretty much know all the news I need to know. I laughed. I'm not depressed. It's not the end of the world, and I'll do it again tomorrow.
Yeah, talking of guests, you've had some fantastic guests on, whether that's Governor Cuomo and Dr. Fauci, their first late night interviews. You must have been chuffed to speak to them.
I just remember being, in the space where I was watching this Dr. Fauci character, where I was like, man, he knows so much and he's been through so much. And then I read up on his history, and you realize that Dr. Fauci has worked through administrations, through different pandemics, and he's been fighting on the right side of them for so long. I felt like it's important for my audience and the Daily Show to give that platform to somebody like Dr. Fauci, where it's like, hey man, just give us the information we need. People are paranoid. People don't even want to open their own doors. They don't want to open packages. They don't know what's what. So it would be great if you could engage us using myself as the medium. And I was lucky and really grateful that he came on. The same goes for Governor Cuomo. I think a lot of leaders take for granted how important it is to engage with people as opposed to just talk at them. And a lot of the time, that's what leaders do at press conferences or briefings. They just talk at people, and they don't engage with a human being.
Are there other people in that vein that you'd like to get on while this is going on?
I've always been a big fan of interviewing people I don't agree with. I've always been a big fan of interviewing people who don't share views akin to mine. And I've always believed that for two reasons. One, I think it's important to challenge your ideas. If you believe they're right, you should be able to challenge your ideas with the ideas of others, and then hopefully sharpen and hone them through those experiences. I also think it's important to engage with people on a human level, because I think that's sometimes something we've lost in politics, especially in America, because you have a two-party system where a lot of the time people don't see each other as human beings across political lines. It's really become a vitriolic atmosphere. And so when the Daily Show, when I took over, we interviewed more Republicans before the election than we did Democrats. And my show has been open to Republicans ever since. I mean, once Trump won, a lot of them were afraid to come on the show. And, luckily we've had some who still come on and realize that I'm not trying to fight with you. I genuinely want to engage with you as a human being and ask you questions that I think a lot of people would be interested in hearing the answers to. And so, I still hope to get more Republican leaders on the show. I still hope to get more, genuine conservatives on the show, not trolls, not people who are trying, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to entertain nor give a platform to Nazis or neo-Nazis. I want to talk to genuine conservatives who go, these are my beliefs, and I'm willing to talk to you about them as a fellow human being.
And it's not just you. You have a great team of correspondents there. Did you really make Desi Lidich watch 48 hours of Fox News?
I think Desi's watched more Fox News than she ever thought she would. But luckily, it wasn't 48 hours. But yeah, I think that's been one of the great blessings of the Daily Show, and now the Daily Social Distancing Show, is that we've got this amazing team. I've always been a lover of talent. And so from the time we kicked off the show, one thing I inherited from Jon Stewart that I hold dear to my heart is that the Daily Show should be a platform for talented individuals from different walks of life, and you look at the alum of the Daily Show going back from Rob Corddry to Samantha Bee and John Oliver. And so I've always wanted to continue that legacy. And I'm lucky that I have the cast around me that I do, from Roy Wood Jr., who's now in like Netflix shows and on all different kinds of programs, and I think is going to be a superstar, to Desi Lidich, who in my opinion is one of the most talented actors I've ever had the privilege of working with, and Ronnie Chang and Jabuki Young White and Dulce Sloan and Michael Costa and Jordan Klepper, who's come on for special pieces as well. I really am grateful that I'm working with all of these people the way I am, because it enables the show to have a diverse point of view, and it allows me to have fun because these people are my friends. And
finally, Trevor, are you getting any closer to cutting your own hair?
I don't know. I think people have asked me this. They go like, how long are you going to let the hair grow? It's actually a little bit short today because I put like a hoodie on, so I leave it the way it is. And then they go like, and how often are you going to shave? I don't know. I'm like, I like the idea of doing that all when this is over. I like the idea of not having to worry about everything for now. I also like, being myself when I'm at home. Like I'm not necessarily worried about my hair and my face when I'm at home. And so if I'm going to have viewers coming into my home, I want you to see a little bit of who I am. I'm not wearing a suit at home. Come on. I'm not like that's weird for me. Yeah, and I'm not always worried about my facial hair or how I look. I don't even wear makeup on the show anymore because this is a very different feeling for us. It's a different time. And if anything, this show is less about business as usual, and it's more about me connecting with people who've supported me for a long time, and hopefully I can provide them just a little bit of respite during what is easily one of the scariest times we've ever lived through.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're definitely doing that. So thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.